All right, this is gonna be my first educational video ever on anything. So let's get this started and let's see how this goes.
Oh, stop that. You scared me. See, we're bonding.
So this enclosure size right here that you see is 2 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet. Some people recommend 3 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet. It really just depends. They recommend length over height with these guys just because I guess they've had better results. It keeps humidity and temperature better. I personally don't spray in here. They do recommend spraying, but the way I have my enclosure set up is I usually will have like a gauge, which my gauge is out right now. But I usually keep everything kind of blocked off, which keeps the humidity up. It does really well. I have a water bowl on the bottom, which helps with the humidity as well. These guys are known, I guess, for being lazy sometimes, and they won't go to the bottom to get their water if they're like a taller enclosure. So they recommend having a shelf halfway up or on the taller side, just to have a water bowl up there, just so they don't get dehydrated. I haven't had an issue with that personally because I've seen them go down and drink from their water bowl, both of them. All right, so I'm gonna talk about the sticks in their enclosure. You can do removable or you can mount them. It's really your choice. I prefer mounted because when she strikes, she does strike. I will post a video of her striking at food. But I don't want the sticks moving because I don't want her falling off. I don't want her getting injured. So I prefer mounted, which does make it a little bit more inconvenient for removing, but I've learned a quick trick on how to remove them. But yeah, I've kind of disturbed her, so that's why she's like that. But when I personally want to pet her, if I want to hold her, if I want to do anything with her, I always stick my hand from underneath and I always go from the bottom, because it typically gives you better results. And whenever you go from top, they are more likely to strike because you're going to come off as a predator from coming from above. But I will show you how I remove her in this next part. All right, so the bad thing about these guys when they're younger, they are a lot more delicate, but they're also really fucking feisty at the same time. So my thought process is, when I go to hold my snake, and if it does try to bite me, you just let it happen, okay? Just don't react, because if you make that jerking motion, you could possibly injure the snake. Yeah, I know, you're just a grumpy little shit. But I've had him for over a year. He's definitely a lot more bark than bite. He will bite me still occasionally, but not very often. Yeah, I know. Keep in mind when you do go to grab your snake, always start from underneath and gently let the snake choose the direction it wants to go when it decides to move. You can't just grab them, pull them off, because they do like to wrap around, especially that tip of the tail area. That they love to wrap that area around, and that area is really delicate. So if you just pull on it really hard, you're just going to injure the snake. So I typically will rub the tail gently, which will motivate them to let go of the stick themselves. All right, so I have her out. She peed and pooped all over me, all over my phone, and all over the floor because she's not very fond of being held. But just keep in mind, when you pull these guys out, you can hold them pretty easily once they're out if they're pretty mellow. Just don't trust them because they do like to lunge randomly, and they've definitely gotten near my face a few times. So just keep that in mind when you do have them out. So these animals are treated more like display animals than anything, but because they're kind of like the saltwater or the fish tank world, they're a little bit more delicate, but they're not super delicate if you know what you're doing. They only recommend holding them once a week, once every 2 weeks, not very often, because they do stress pretty easy. But I will stick my hand in the enclosure with them, and I'll grab them from underneath like I showed you, just to kind of get them used to me. I don't pull them out every time. I just kind of, give them little pets and let them get accustomed to me so they're less likely to ruin my day. These guys do come in 3 different colors as babies. They come in as a bright yellow, a red, or a reddish brown. As you can tell, this guy was yellow when starting off. Around the 6 to 12 month mark is when they start changing colors. As you can tell, this guy is changing green. If I can get right here, he's getting some blue on him as well, which is fucking fantastic because the blue is just absolutely stunning on these guys. So I hope the blue comes out more. As you can tell right there, the tip of the tail is typically a different color. It's like a blackish, so they can use it as a lure for hunting to entice things to come in. When they get hungry, they will wiggle it around. Look at that little face. He's so cute. The next part of this video will be some feeding videos. If you want to skip it, you can. They're not live feedings. They're all frozen thawed. I don't like feeding these guys live just because, well, I don't want to dangle a live rat in there, and I just feel bad if I have to do that. But they'll take frozen thawed. They don't seem picky. It doesn't matter if the rat's a slightly different color than normal. These guys will take it. I typically will thaw them out in the room so they can get the smell in the air. And this girl can tell when it's feeding because when I do open the enclosure, she's climbing out of the enclosure to get to the rat. Looks like she wants to strike at me, which, I mean, I don't blame you if you do, but for food size reference, you want to go off the thickest part of the body, which I'll stick my hand in, and hopefully she doesn't bite me. She might be hungry, but I did feed her last week. Her thickest part of the body is like right here where my thumb is. So usually it's like an adult mouse or a small rat if I want to feed her that. I see you staring at me. So in the first video, it's a prime example why I like my perches mounted, because she does like to lunge out and she will take her whole body with her. And she does use that back end to hold on to it while she wraps up her prey. In the second video, sometimes these guys can be a pain to feed because they'll strike it, but they won't take it. But if you just stick with it and kind of annoy them just a little bit, they will take it and they will finish it. So don't just give up immediately if they don't take it. Sometimes it takes them a second to actually convince themselves to take it. There are some giveaways when these guys do go into shed, like their head getting fatter. That's the one I always notice the most. Their skin does get a little duller, but I don't always pick up on that one, but I always pick up on the head getting swollen. One area you want to keep an eye out when they do shed is that tip of that tail. The tip of the tail doesn't always come off, and you have to be really delicate with taking it off. I used a wet washcloth basically, and I soaked that area. He did bite me a couple times when I was doing it, which he's a grumpy little shit. But yeah, just kind of soak it, and then you can just gently peel it off. Just keep in mind, keep an area out. English, fuck me sideways. All in the video is showing off how pretty my Aru green tree python is. She is stunning with the blue. The blue is, you can't tell if it's going to have a blue as a baby, so you just kind of luck out with it. But she is stunning with the blue. Her whole belly's all blue. She has blue going throughout her. Her tip of the tail is blue, and she's just a pretty fucking snake.